Hey people, so a few things about this game. First is, we're on pace to win. This is part 9, I think, of the Portugal game. We're on pace to win, unless the Mongols get a cultural victory. I'll come back to that, but it looks like we're at 15.6k and we need 20,000. We're going to be getting there. There's plenty of turns left. Spaceship isn't that close. I think we can do it. In terms of the Mongols, remember that they have to have double all other civs. Otherwise, they don't get specifically for entire civilization. Oh, actually, because it's a huge map, the limit is much higher than the 100k, so they're not even close. Yeah. So we should be able to do one city cultural victory without anyone causing any problems. Nobody's close to the spaceship. So yeah, we're getting there. And the second thing is, it'll take a while. And that's because the turns move quite slowly here because it's such a huge map, which you guys, I will remind you, insisted that I play at some point, which I have so graciously done. So it's going to be a bit of a boring part, but I'm going to spice it up a bit for us. So what I thought I'd do is, because I'm indulging you on this request of playing a super huge map, I mean, it wasn't specifically for like the whole archipelago one city deity thing, but just like throughout, it's been one of my most consistent requests, along with things like playing the conquest, things like that. Yeah, people always ask for play the largest map possible, which I don't like to do for a bunch of reasons. One of which is that it takes the turn so long to load once you're far enough in the game. And it's something I guess I actually had forgotten about since it didn't even factor into my brain. I just remember having very bad experiences playing maps of this size. But yeah, this is the reason why. It doesn't help that I have more cities to micromanage, definitely. Anyway, so what I thought I'd do to make this more interesting, or I made it more interesting for you. I fulfilled my pledge to you by playing this large map that I didn't want to play. So in exchange, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about something I like, and that's the Civ 3 multiplayer ladder. Oh god, that's a mess. Oh yeah, you. Stop that. So, recently, I mean, you know I'm part of the Civ 3 multiplayer community. I like playing multiplayer. Multiplayer is fantastic. And there was actually a ladder that ran from about 2001, 2002 until 2014. So it has a long epic history. And I'll explain its deal. So the reason it started is because if you just like, let's say you go into Civilization 3, right? You go into the multiplayer lobby and you just host a game. And then you just wait for it to fill up and then you launch it with 5 or 6 people. You're going to have probably a pretty bad experience. And so the reason for that is a bunch of things. The first is that the base game is not at all tailor-made for multiplayer. Because the base game takes what? I mean, this game has taken like 9 or 10 hours, and I'm playing, like, I'm good at this game. I play relatively quickly. I play with the combat animations off. I know a lot of hotkeys for my workers, things like that. I use queues, and still it takes 10 hours. So if you play the game just normally in a multiplayer, it will take 10 hours to reach any sort of conclusion. In typical situations, obviously if someone rushes or anything like that, it'll be a little bit different. But you're just not likely to reach a reasonable conclusion in a reasonable amount of time. The second reason is that you will get people who just do whatever. Like, they will quit. They will not take it seriously. They might cheat, I guess. That's, in the grand scheme of things, not a huge problem in the Civ 3 community. But yeah, people don't take things too seriously. Like, especially when what's most common is like people start up a game, they don't understand that it will take 10 hours if you just play the base game. And then lo and behold, you're 2 hours in and no one's even made contact with each other if you play on an island map or something like that. There's no hope of a resolution in sight, and people quit because they didn't understand what they signed up for. They didn't commit enough time for what playing the base game entails. Or that, or like even if there is something of significance actually happening, let's say they're getting their ass kicked. Well, then they're going to leave because they're getting their ass kicked, right? If they've lost a few cities, if they get beaten to crucial wonders, they don't want to play anymore, and so they stop playing. So this was rampant in the early days of the Civ 3 multiplayer community. Oh, I should mention that these problems actually really, they build on top of each other. So what happens is, like, if a few people leave the game, then suddenly the map is even bigger relative to the number of players on the map. So it becomes too much of a problem. and so even more players are incentivized to quit, etc. So people were fed up with this cycle, and so what they decided to do was start a multiplayer ladder. So the ladder is, I mean, what it did was it effectively. Oh God, how much am I paying in unit support? Oh, not that much. We'll get a few tanks out. So the ladder kept track of wins and losses, and it assigned people ranks based on those wins and losses. But that actually wasn't the primary function of the ladder. The primary functions of the ladder was to give players incentives to play decisive games and take the games seriously and continue to play them. And the second thing it did was it actually like it created a community. Like there was a club. There's an inside club and an outside club. And to non-ladder players, the ladder was seemed like super exclusive and annoying and everything like that. They don't want to let us play in their games, but I mean it was not a super hard thing to do to join. I remember having a little bit of difficulty that you like ask like, oh, how do I join ladder games in the lobby, and no one would reply. And I mean, to an extent, that's still a problem to the modern day. The Discord tends to be very friendly, but the Steam group, sometimes your message will just get lost in the chat, especially like the way the multiplayer lobby used to work. If you talked into multiplayer lobby, it like in the Steam chat, it would at least be saved all day. In the multiplayer lobby, it would just like go further up, and then it would be hard to see what on earth was said, and it would just get buried there. So yeah, because of that, it could be like if you asked enough, you would be able to get in. It wasn't some super exclusive club. You just had to like download GameSpy and sign up on some website that people would link you to. So yeah, once you were in the ladder, you were like an official person who took it seriously, and there was like a community. And it had its own culture, its own history. It had a clan system. It had a really detailed forum. Oh, where was this coming from? Oh, I must have been getting luxuries from the Vikings. Oh yeah, from a bunch of people. You're a little too close for comfort. Who else? Oh, Scandinavia. How far behind are you? Yeah, not far behind enough for my liking. I don't want to pay you gold either. We'll see if what we're getting from China is enough. Clearly not. Okay. I guess between the two, I'd rather give it to the Mongols then. Huh, espionage. Oh, that gives culture. Fuck yeah. Sorry, I didn't plan this story out about the ladder in advance. I just like, oh, I'll just talk about the ladder as a promotion for the ladder. So yeah, it actually like I only joined the ladder. I was about 15 years old, and I joined about 2008. And by that point, the game was already Conquest was 6 years old or 7 years old, and the game itself was like 8 years old. So it actually was past its peak to a certain extent, but it was still massively popular. So there was some stat when they were like transferring over to the new ladder. They compared it to the Civ 4 multiplayer community, and even at that point in 2007 or 2008 or so, it was like almost on par with Civ 4 in terms of like the quantity of games played. It was like 350 to 420 in a week or something like that. It was still very, very active, and that's because I think fundamentally the multiplayer experience for Civ 3 is fucking phenomenal, especially when custom mods were made. So there's this like evolution culturally over the course of the ladder's lifespan towards certain mods and away from particular other mods. So one mod that used to be not even a mod, it was called Epic. It was just like a game frame where you just play the game out, and it would take 3 to 6 hours. And if you chose like the right map settings and you're playing with the right people who would actually complain or commit to playing that long, and if you used like certain scoring systems in the rules, it actually started to have meaning, and you could actually just play a regular game of Civ 3. QC was weirdly popular early on, then fell out of popularity, and then eventually came back into popularity. But the ones that really became popular in the late 2000s, opposed to the early 2000s, were games that were more was MPT and Future. So people had been playing Future Start for God knows how long, but it was not really properly balanced for. I mean, the game's not properly balanced for Future Start. Like, bombers are supposed to be this god tier unit that just ends the game, and in Future Start, you only need one fucking resource, and you can build this game-ending bomber. Because one fun fact, I'll show you what bombers do. It's not just that they bomb and can kill units and have a ridiculous rate of fire and bombard strength, and they're relatively cheap in the grand scheme of things. Now, the crazy thing that bombers do is they do. I'll do it on a less useful tile. They do this. They do craters, and what craters do is -1 food, -1 gold, and -1 shield. If you get if you plant an airbase near someone's country, and then you surprise them with 4 quick bombing runs on their key tiles at end of turn, and then 4 at the start of the next turn, then you just cratered half of their productive tiles in their capital, which is devastating if you do it in turn 30 or turn 35, which is totally doable in Future Start. And of course, bombers are supposed to be a win more unit in the base game. They're supposed to be strong, and they're supposed to be hard to counter unless you are prepared. Either you have conquered the resource somehow, you have oil, or you trade for oil. Because the only way that you can reliably shoot down bombers is the fighter or the jet fighter. So what that meant is if you don't have oil and someone else near you has oil, what do? They can just crater your entire civilization. You can put units on the tile, but they can just destroy those units. Unless you put a flak on every single tile, because the flak or the SAM, I believe, are the only units that can guard against bombers that don't require oil, but the problem is they only guard one tile. So you can protect your cities, maybe, you can protect your king, but you can't protect all your tiles from being cratered like this. So obviously, it's not a lot of fun to play Future Start if you play it the way that it was initially designed. And so modifications were made to adjust for this and to create a balanced metagame. And it's suddenly as these changes were taken into place, the game actually became a lot more fun. And suddenly that became popular. People realized that they preferred shorter games rather than longer games. That was what the community shifted towards. And that's just how it was. So a lot of players around the late 2000s. Oh, I'm glad I caught that. Is that Samaria? Huh. Okay, do I have a lot of workers here? There's something sneaky I can do. So they're not coded to attack armies. They could still attack this city, but what I could do is... Oh, I know, I'd have to do 2 forests. Is that even possible? No, I can't even do 1. Okay. I guess he just straight up might attack me. This one's on a hill. Let's bring over my big stack of bombers. So what's this, one culture per turn? Can I do better than that? 3 culture per turn. Oh, I'll go with the intelligence agency. Research lab is 2. Oh yeah, I'll rush out the research lab. And I'll bring some of these guys over. Oh, of course. This is too far. Wow, that's... Yeah, it's not often... when we play Future, we play it on small maps, so you don't run into range issues very often. But here we are. You think you would just... Oh, it's Spain. Are they at war with the Dutch or something? I must be strong to Spain. Samaria... Yeah, I'm strong to Spain. They're a democracy. Why is this lag? Oh my god, why are they doing this to me? Done. Okay. I better do this safe and get everybody at war with Spain, because I don't want to deal with an actual war here. Hmm. I don't actually have an embassy with Chinese. I like literally everybody on the map. I will get at war with Spain. That is how much I don't want to be. I say I don't want to be bugged here after as I deal with. Forgot to turn on my. Do not disturb. Yeah. Okay. So Spain, I'm at war with. Everybody else, I will military alliance with, and they will die, and the Dutch will get stronger, and I'll probably have to give away a few techs, but I'm fine with this. So yeah, the ladder was this cool thing. Everybody had fun. Yeah, by the time I joined in 2008, the big scenarios were Future and MPT. So Future was Future Start. You had bombers, cruise missiles. It was this whole like complex, uh, very exciting too, kind of meta game that had devolved. It was like very strategic. It was focused on key units. Like all the ancient era Civ 3 is focused on big stacks, but Future is just like just a few units made a difference. And so that set it apart from other scenarios because it was more making the decisions with the few units that you had rather than like a million decisions per second. At least people will like me too. Against the Spanish. Oh, I think he might actually give me the per turn gold. Yeah, just not the upfront gold. Because he thinks I'm gonna renege. Uh, yeah, it's the 19 gold, not the ivory, which I value far more. That causes the issues. Why not? Huh. Oh, it must be her who I. Will she tell me? You know what? That's one least powerful civ. I could end up at war with both Spain and England as long as everybody else is at war with England, which I think I can do. That's fine by me. I don't like bringing all these civs closer to the next era, but let's see how close they are. They still need motorized transportation at least, and definitely flight. Yeah. Anyway, that should solve things. But yeah, I just can't express how much fun the initial ladder was. Just having this computer, you could just play any game you wanted. If you wanted Future, you wanted MPT, you wanted like a free for all ancient type, like one city elimination over after 90 turns. And people still played Epic too. You know, it wasn't as common; it was more of an early thing. But people did. If you wanted people to play Epic with, you could find them. And once you won or lost, you would report that game to the ladder, and it counted for something. And you could see yourself on the leaderboard. And because there's so much depth to the strategy game, it really rewarded people getting really good and competition, cheating to a certain extent. There were a lot of conflicts apparently, but it was a lot of fun. And I know because I played the original ladder between on and off between 2008 and 2011. I'm guessing Spain was my spices. Oh no, he has some too. Anyway, so all good things must come to an end. That's a bad line, but it's true in this case. What happened was, in 2014, the game was sold to Steam. So GameSpy had some sort of stake, or for Access or whoever. They sold the game to Steam, and then the GameSpy servers were shut down. I think GameSpy as a whole was shut down. It's pretty sad because GameSpy was where most of the games were organized, right? The latter games, and as soon as, oh, interesting. Okay, I mean, did that happen last part or something? Yeah. Anyway, next turn we'll rush out of wonder. And so, yeah, the community that we kept on playing, like the latter players, they just stuck together. They formed a Steam group and they kept playing their games. They had like rules that were left over from the latter era, like certain tactics that were banned, certain tactics that are super cheap but are allowed, like the double move, for example, because there's like a turn timer, right? And when the turn timer is about to expire, you move your units and then you move again at the start of the next turn. So from the other person's perspective, it's like you move twice in a row, but completely legal. And in fact, the scenarios are balanced around the fact that you will be able to do that. Yeah, so these players continued to play together, but over time, like the initial players started, like there was slow attrition. And what was left were players who were very, very dedicated, but there weren't a ton of them left. There was maybe 20 who played regularly, and then another 20 or 30 that would, like, some months they would, some months they wouldn't. Or they'd stop by once a year or something like that. So that's when I came back in. It was around the very end of 2014 and 2015. I started playing again. And there was a period of my life where I was unemployed after finishing my master's degree, and I was living with my parents, and I had nothing to do but sit at home all day. And then, like, every single game of Civ that happened, I would be involved in it. Like, if it was there, I would play it. And it was a lot of fun, but I got really, really good and really attached to the game. I cared a lot about it. I've always loved this game a ton, but it made me really passionate about the multiplayer community too, and trying to keep it alive. And that's one of the reasons I started with this YouTube channel. It was actually to post multiplayer games and to bring attention to the multiplayer community, and it's been quite effective at doing so. Not like dramatic or anything. I mean, I'd say maybe half of the players who are playing multiplayer now came through my channel in some form or another. In terms of number of players, like obviously the most dedicated players have been there for since the beginning. Like Zardoz is retired. He plays 2 games every day. And so it's unfair to compare them with, like, a lot of the new players are younger and so they don't have quite as much time to play. But yeah, the community has grown quite a bit. And since the coronavirus hit, everybody's been staying at home, right? And so it's just been going wild in terms of activity. There's just games constantly throughout the day. Like I wake up in the morning and I'd see chat messages at 3 a.m. of people organizing 2v2 futures, you know? Probably about 10, 12, 15 games each day. Of multiple mods. Like it used to be right after the ladder fell apart. It was kind of like a rough period because there weren't a lot of players. And so people played QC because MPT is a mod. You need 8 people for MPT. Like that's just the size of the map is hard coded. And so for the map size not to be too big, you need that many people. Nice. There's nothing cultural here, is there? No. So people couldn't play MPT. Future is like kind of like pineapple on pizza. It's like either you like it or you don't. So most people didn't want to play Future. And so people started playing QC again, which had used to be a popular mod. I don't know. It was like it worked well as a 3v3. Future also works well as a 3v3. And so people people hadn't edited the map size for QC to be able to play it 4v4. It was just like understood to be a 3v3 scenario. Like that's the ideal form of it. So people played a lot of QC, and when I came back into the community, I started modding QC to make it a better multiplayer scenario, and I think I've done a very good job at that. It kind of like very much encapsulates the most into the game. Like MPT is like very similar to Civ 3 in terms of the rules. Like it just like has the regular rules for Civ 3, and then it's one city elimination. It's a tiny Pangea map. All civs with ancient era unique units. But like, I mean, there's still the despotism penalty and things like that from the base game. QC, like the form is very different, but the metagame is more in line with what you'd play single player. Like there's an expansion phase. You can do some quick rushes, but they're not super fruitful most of the time. And you can win. Like you scale up in the medieval era, you communicate with your team, you trade resources back and forth, you upgrade units, and then you can reach as far as the early industrial era. And you kill each other with big stacks of cavalry, just like in the base game. So yeah, whereas MPT is a very cerebral game, which is mostly focused on your own unique unit. Like each civ has a very unique playstyle depending on their unique unit. Like you have the ultra early game civs, which would be the Incans and the Aztecs, and then the Zulus to a certain extent, like the Rusher civs and the choking civs, Samaria too. Then you got the kind of mid-game civs like Egypt and Persia, and then you have like the hyper-carry late-game civs like the Iroquois and especially the Celts. So if you're playing like Aztecs and Incans against the Celts and the Iroquois, and you've reached like turn 40 in MPT, you've probably already lost just because of how the civs are. People actually don't tech beyond the military techs in MPT. Like once they get like map making, ironworking, and horseback riding, they just stop teching, and they spend all their excess golds on upgrades. And people never tech into the medieval era because it's just not worth it. It's better to just build a bunch of warriors and then spend your gold on upgrading them to swordsmen. So yeah, because of that, MPT, it's like very like the game rules are very similar to base Civ 3, but the meta game is just woefully bizarre to new players, whereas QC has more of an expansion phase and a build-up phase, and then yeah. So because of that, I feel it better encapsulates the Civ experience, so I'm more happy with where it went. Anyway, so that was the main scenario that people had been playing throughout. Like there would be brief periods of future, and sometimes we'd get enough people together that as a compromise we'd be like, oh, we'll do an MPT. But I'd say about like 70 to 80 to 90%, depending on the month of the games, would be QCs. But with the new burst of players, both from like incoming people from the YouTube channel and all the advertisements that we've done to get the ladder back up and running, or not the ladder, but to get the community back up and running, and the more people staying at home because of the coronavirus, we've had enough that we can play like MPT, QC, Future all day. Like we can have a Future running, a QC running, and an MPT like in the lobby with 4 people about to join up. So yeah, there's more variety. And because of the extra players coming, we decided to start the ladder back up. So it's funny because like we'd like entertained the idea, but there didn't really seem to be any benefits, right? Because like we're all ex-ladder players, we understand the rules. We know that if we quit, then we won't. If we quit enough, then we won't be able to play with the other people around, and that matters more than any ranking ever could. The respect of our peers. And not being excluded from games because we love playing our games. The community is small enough that we know everybody by name, and if they're a quitter or a cheater or whatever, we know that that's them, and we can treat them accordingly. Whereas that wasn't possible when there was thousands of active players. So yeah, like what's the point kind of starting the ladder again? And it's kind of a vanity thing. Like it just seems like a lot of us like idealize the ladder and think that, yeah, that's the way it should be. Despite the fact that it's hard to name any tangible benefits, and other than bragging rights and stuff like that, any like big tangible benefits, and it is possible to name some potential troubles with restarting the ladder. Once you give people incentive to start caring about games, you incentivize cheating and dishonest tactics. You also, I mean, it would encourage players to like stay into the game way past the point where they have any reasonable chance of winning, just because they want to like maybe hope the other team will get bored and quit or something like that. You have to figure out like what you do to resolve the game on score. If there's no kills that are happening, how do you decide who wins? In regular Civ 3, like in the post ladder era, you could just like say, okay, I don't really care anymore. There's no consequences to me living. If they want to call it a win, I'll call it a win. But if the other team's doing, like, if you're in a dominant position, but the game isn't ending, do you just give up and give up your win in the ladder? No, you keep fighting, and it can make games drag out long past the point where anybody actually cares. So yeah, you incentivize cheating, and you incentivize long games with less conclusive endings, and you also complete a lot of conflicts. Like normally, this actually happened last night. So what happened was there was a bizarre bug where someone had an army like this one right here, and they were engaging in combat, and one of the units popped out of the army, and they defeated the enemy unit, but their own army died because of the bug. So that was a bug that none of us had ever seen before. There's like some weird possible bugs in this game. And it's like, what do you do in the cases of these bugs? It doesn't matter too much in the case of non-ladder games. You can just scrap the game and there's no consequences, but people get really opinionated as soon as their wins and losses are on the line. So those are the potential risks. But for some reason, all of us thought that the ladder was the way it should be, and so nobody has complained about the ladder. Like Zardoz is like one of the older veteran players who's very experienced in the community, and he told me that he would report his games no problem. He'd play in ladder games, he'd host ladder games, but he did not want to be a mod because he had been a mod in the old ladder, and he'd made too many enemies. He'd pissed too many people off. He was sick of doing it. He didn't want to do it anymore. So we found other mods. And yeah, like not a ton of people were like that active in the initial discussions in how the ladder, like what the rules would be, for example. But as soon as like the first ladder game got hosted, everybody wanted their games to be ladder from that on. Because like as soon as you start the ladder, then it feels like the other games aren't real games. The ladder games are the real games. Even people who hadn't read the rules were suddenly signing up to ladder games, and I was like having to register for them for the ladder post hoc. Uh, 17, 109 per turn. That's not bad. Okay, I think we should be switching. I'm fed up with microing this. Let's. Oof. Did we get the research lab here? Yeah, we did. Oh, nice. We have a shield. So we don't have to pay that double cost. No. Anyway, yeah, we're 3 days into the ladder right now, and everybody's having a ton of fun. And there have been issues of conflict, but I noticed, like, people care about the games more now. Like, I wouldn't say, like, they care about, like, Civ 3 more, but, like, the individual games, people became a lot more passionate about the individual games. They care about the results, and they get excited when they win. They get hyped when they, like, almost win. They get hyped for other people's plays, even if they lose. Like, the amount of post-game discussions in the lobbies have probably doubled since we started the ladder. Just because people are giving it that extra, like, 20% of their attention and that makes for more exciting plays, more exciting games. And so that's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's one of the reasons, like, just like I came to the there was a tournament today, actually, and I was checking in after the tournament, and I just saw so much nice discussion about the games that were played, more than I'm used to seeing, and that kind of made me light up. And that's why, like, I came into this game super psyched to talk about the ladder, and just super excited about the future of the Civ 3 multiplayer community in general. I know that generally the trend will be downwards over time. Maybe, but I like to think that the game has aged particularly well, and compared to Civ 4, for example, maybe. I've only played a bit of Civ 4 multiplayer, but I think compared to a game like Civ 4, it will stand out as like, oh, hey, people realize there will be this particular community of very passionate people towards Civ 3 That doesn't exist for other games in the Civilization franchise or similar strategy games. Heroes 3 is kind of similar in a way. Like, nobody gives a fuck about Heroes 4 anymore. I apologize if you do, but yeah, it's the truth. But Heroes 3, like, there's something about it, like, it was an ideal form of gaming from that era. And so people care about it. And people who like the game are happy that they're, like, sometimes people come to the channel, but then they have no interest in playing multiplayer, but they're like, that's just so great that multiplayer Civ 3 exists. I'm glad that there are people who are so passionate about the game and are able to get so much out of it. Because it is a good game. Oh, crap. How did Russia end up at war with everybody? How's the deal with the devil here? Might as well do it both ways. Fuck. Oh, Samaria. Nice. I think I just basically... Yeah, Is Russia at war with the Vikings? No, they can just trade for each other. Yeah, I better put the Vikings into the next era. Because otherwise they'll just trade for each other and Russia will be there too and Russia gets a free tech. Wait, I got all the... Where's this coming from? I got all the luxuries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... That's 8. That's 8 luxuries. Do you guys not have marketplaces at home? Ah. Where... Yeah, I honestly don't understand where this is all coming from. Oh, I'm at war. I'm also in a military alliance, though. I am technically at war, though. Okay, let's switch into wealth. Don't care, don't care. Do I have any airports? Yeah, fuck it. Oh, okay, now the happiness kicks in. I see how it is. But yeah, I'll talk a bit about the future for the ladder. So the ladder's up and running. It's working really... I mean, there are few enough games. It's only like 5 to 10 per day, maybe. It's few enough games that we decided that we could just do it all manually. So people will report the games, and then I put them in a list, and then Gunnar Beeps puts them in a spreadsheet he made in Excel, and that's an easy way to keep track of games. And we do like a home-baked ELO system, which is good because it make us subjective. Oh, Spain died. So I'm not at war with Spain anymore because they did. Yeah, we got the ELO system up and running. I'm curious because we initially calibrated the ELOs based on like community-wide tier list of like who's a good player, who's a mediocre player, etc. Just so like it wouldn't take forever to calibrate to like basically be what it's supposed to be. And I'm curious like how will it reveal anything that we didn't already know? Like will it be like, oh, certain player is undervalued or overvalued? I think it might. I'm curious to see how that will go. Am I actually the best Civ 3 player for multiplayer? That'll be fun to see. But one thing I'd like to do in the future. It'll come to me. Not like we don't have enough time for it. Yeah, I was talking about this with Libertarian from the Discord and from the Steam group. So the idea is a cash tournament because people really cared about the tournament today. What would happen if like I donate $20 and Libertarian donates $20 and anyone else who wants to donate can donate $20? What would actually happen? Like, if people care about the games this much now, how hype would it be if there was actually money on the line? And yeah, and then we could like record all the games for YouTube. It wouldn't have to be like a complicated tournament. Just 4 teams, 3 players each. We record the game in spectator mode, and we post. The 2 teams like they face off. There's like a semifinals, and then a head-to-head final. Could be a best of 3 even, depending on how much time we have. Yeah, best of 3 for finals. So that would just be either 4 or 5 games total. It's not even that much. I could record 5 games. And we put them all on YouTube. And like once we like know these games actually mean something, because it's like when I like cast a game, and it's like kind of like a one-sided stomp or like an early rush, or it's not a very interactive game. It doesn't feel I'm like tempted not to post it even because it's not that exciting to post. It's not like a good representation of how amazing Civ 3 multiplayer can be. But if it's the stuff on the line, like suddenly those games become a lot more interesting. Can they recover from the one-sided stomp? I think people will play a lot less selfishly. Like things like getting contact with their team, which is normally it's something that you're supposed to do to make your team better off, but often individual players will drop the ball. They'll assume that their teammate will do it. That kind of stuff becomes a lot more important when a lot's on the line. And so I think if that was the case, if you did offer prize money, people would actually start playing it right, and the games would become more competitive. We only have one airport, huh? I guess we'll do this one at a time. Fuck it. Oh, I did start, the internet in... Oh, I shouldn't have bought those research labs, and I'm going to get the internet. I'm an idiot. Yeah, some of these things, it's like I'd like to assume that we're going to end the game before 40 turns from now when the gorilla gets built. And I have to deal with that. No, Samaria. Yeah, I'd like to start streaming against too, but at the moment my internet's not good enough for it, so sadly that will have to wait. But yeah, I think that would like kind of be the ultimate exhibition of Civ 3 multiplayer would be the tournament like that. A cash tournament. The people who won could brag about being the only competitive Civ 3 or professional Civ 3 players in the world. I don't even care enough to deal with the prompt next turn. Okay, let's check how close I was at like 1750 last time I checked, and I'm getting like 109 per turn. So that's like 20 turns maximum, so none of this shit up here matters. Oh my god, I'm going to deal with this, though. This pisses me off. Yeah. So the ladder itself is like not the best way of promoting the community. I mean, because it's a little intimidating to go into ladder games for the first time. But I think it would attract people. Anyone who used to play the ladder knows how fucking fun it used to be, and I think it would attract old ladder players if we can get the word out to them. Like I always wish that someone had like an old email list or something. We could just like send one email being like, "Hey, if you guys missed this, it's back," and all the things that are great about all the great scenarios are still there. But yeah, and it can make things a little bit more elitist, but it also gives like players an excuse to like train, like something to aspire to raise their rank. I think that would be really cool. Like we're already seeing like, I mean, especially with the future start scenario, I feel like a few players were just trying to pick, like, because it recently became popular because of Corona. A few players were trying to pick it up when the ladder got made, and so they're like defying initial projections because they're growing in skill very very fast. I mean, there's some people who kind of cap out at skill like later on, even like mid tier or low tier players who like they just don't get better for whatever reason. But the players who are like picking up the future scenario for the first time, that potential is we don't know. They could be the next Ironclad, the next Halu, the next best player in the league, or they could cap out like lower mid tier. Who knows? But a lot of them are like really defying expectations and taking down the pros in some of their games. And yeah, that must be really exciting for them. I mean, I can tell it's exciting for them because they report that they're super excited. Like I was skyping a game with Dreadclaw the other day. So there's a future. He spawned near a very scary player named Ironclad. He did have the advantage because he had oil nearby, Dreadclaw. But I was nearby him, like in game. I was on his team, and I was kind of like talking him through what to do. And so what I realized is that Ironclad was like one population ahead of Dreadclaw. So that Ironclad would probably, like being in a bad spot, not having oil, he was probably going to rush Dreadclaw. So I advised him, okay, don't build a galleon, switch to a frigate. And what do you know? Ironclad built a galleon, and he sent it towards Dreadclaw, and Dreadclaw sunk it with his frigate. And it was super hype. Like we were able to turn it around on Ironclad, and Dreadclaw, like with the play, he single-handedly won the game for our team. Future's an interesting mod. Like QC, you can kind of follow a formula. Future is very like everything's so situational. You have to like very much use the information that you're given. You can pretty much play QC blind. Like you could play a 1v1 the same way as a 4v4. You follow your checklist, you do this after this, and there are general strategies that you go for, and you can like optimize situationally. But generally, there are strategies that will work well every time. In future, you have to like be hyper prepared. Like there's some situations where you can play you have to play very safe, and some situations where you can play very greedy. And if you play greedy in situations where you should play safe, you will die. There's some situations where you have to do things like, okay, I have to join my worker to my city. Because if I don't join this worker, I won't be able to draft in time, and they're just going to take my empty capital. There's some situations where you can get 4 settlers out before you even draft for the first time on the other extremity. There's sometimes where if you don't play greedy, you'll be punished for it severely. Like if someone is just left on the other side of the map to build like a stock exchange and a nuclear power plant, you're just not going to be able to compete with that late game if you play very defensively early on. And if you know you're in a safe position, you have to build up that late game industrial capacity to be able to match the enemy. So yeah, there's a lot of like, oh yeah, and there's like situational matchups. Like, oh, what do I do if they have oil and I have aluminum? Like, how do I play this matchup out? How do I do the opposite? What counters bombers? Like just the situational knowledge to know that, okay, if I start with oil and they start with aluminum, they are probably going to try to cruise me. I should be on the lookout for how they'll get their cruise missiles for me. Are they going to use a nuclear submarine? Are they going to use a galleon? Etc. To know that if someone spawns within bombing range and they spawn with oil, they are probably going to bomb you. I should prepare against being bombed. It sounds kind of common sense, but like when you're actually in the game, you don't necessarily think about how do I respond to what the other enemy does on the map, or sorry, like what kind of start that the enemy has. So yeah, that's future. Like a lot of players are learning the fundamentals really well. Like if you're a good QC player, you can learn future without too much difficulty. Like I've been teaching Gunnar Beebs all the hurry production tricks in Republic. So things like, oh god, everywhere's building wealth. Yeah. So the city gets 50 gold per turn. Okay, let's say I wanted a mech infantry, which is 110 gold. If you just rush the mech infantry, you're paying 880 gold for something you get in 3 turns. So what can you do instead? Well, you can rush the worker. Because if you have at least 1 shield in the box, it's half price to hurry production. So now we're only paying 480 gold. But we can make it even faster than that. We rush something that costs 70 shields, the flak. Could probably do it cheaper than that. Then you switch to the mech infantry. So that's a way of saving a little bit of money. But in future, it's like really, really crucial to do this. I mean, it's very, very strong to do this when snowballing the early game. You do that with your marketplace, then you do it with your bank, and then you do it with your stock exchange. And like the extra gold you get from having that marketplace done a few turns early turns into having enough gold for the bank and the stock exchange, etc. It's kind of a snowball effect that the more you do it early on, the more you're able to do it. And because players like Gunnar Beebs have very good fundamentals from being strong QC players, they can learn this stuff pretty easily. Anyway, yeah, this is the most self-indulgent. I don't know. Like, I don't like playing games out to the completion. I'm a very impatient person. I'm one of the kind of like, I don't even have patience for QC sometimes. Like QC can be 2 or 3 hours. Futures typically, I mean, a lot of the time it's over in 45 minutes. And there it is, all bright and shiny. We've already had our golden age, sadly. Oh, I should have got cure for cancer. That's actually handy. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I'm glad we got one last check of that. Our commerce bar has actually exceeded. That's fantastic. What are we at now? We got Great Library, Great Wall. Oh, we're finally getting 2 commerce from the Sistine Chapel, plus all the multiplayers, and there are a lot of multipliers here. Oh, and of course we got SETI too. Oh God. Yeah, that's crazy, crazy. Is rocketry even? We should probably be on fission, actually. Yeah, this actually gives us culture. Yeah, sure. And then Apollo program, I guess. I think the game's over in less than 10 turns, though. I guess the other thing people ask for is modern era stuff, but I'll be releasing some future start multiplayer modern era content. The modern era is a fucking mess in the base game, and there are a lot of good fundamental tools that were balanced absolutely awfully that we make good use of in the future start mod. Yeah, this will be over in like 9 turns. Guess we're never getting that cure for cancer that we want, people. It's a shame. But yeah, I've been really getting into Future Start again. I mean, that was the mod I was really, really enamored with when I played initially between 2018 and 2011. That was my specialty. I was a decent player, above average, definitely. But when I came back and everything, all that everybody was playing was QC, I just like, okay, I guess I'm going to be the best at QC now. It took a while, but yeah, I got quite good. So yeah, this series has been a long one. I'm glad I did this though. I like having the. I mean, this is good video quality, right? A lot of my older videos don't really match up to snuff. I had like one of the Celts with ICS, like where you plant your cities really close, and I played in feudalism. I think it was quite a unique strategy, so I left it up on my channel. I think it's still there. Probably I might have removed it by the time you watch this, because the video quality is crap. It's like 480p. But I like having new deity games, and this shows off a really interesting strategy. I mean, last time I went for one city culture victory. Spoiler. Sorry. I'll tell you if you want to go watch that. It's the Carthage series. Like, skip over what I'm about to say now. Skip a minute in the future. It's not like you're gonna miss much. Yeah. But what happened there was I lost a space race victory like 6 turns before I would have won a cultural victory, and it drove me crazy. There's a nice little skit at the end of that video. Yeah, nobody's close to winning. Not seeing any spaceship parts. I like how this war is going on. Is anything interesting? Oh, it looks like the Vikings are taking cities off the English. I do have a lot of mech infantry, which is good because I've got a bunch of armies too. So if something happened, I could just load the mech infantry into the armies and go fuck shit up. Or I could press enter. Oh no. God damn. Okay, that'll be back. You know what? I'm not gonna edit this out. If you're enough of a sadist to watch this far into the video, or sorry, enough of a sadist and a masochist, because you're making me doing this. You guys are making me do this. If I have to suffer through it, you have to suffer through it. Because clearly you enjoy suffering if you're watching this. So yeah, let's check out what's happening elsewhere on the map. Yeah, looks like the Vikings are cleaning up the English. I think that'd be a late game threat if late game threats were allowed to exist. And oh, interesting, huh? Mongols got a city. If late game threats were allowed to exist in a world where I have the culture in my cities that I do. And they did get the Koreans. Aircraft carriers. That's fast. They only just got flight. Can you build? I guess you get at mass production, you probably get carriers, and then you get flight at flight. It's not like you need mass production for flight. I don't even like to think of this as like a Civ video anymore. I just like to think of it as a very, very boring podcast. Christ. Okay, this I'll edit out. Are you well? You're well. Oh, huh. Oh, what do you know? It's unexpected. Good thing, too, because that seemed to be a troublesome turn. We should have won in more than less than 9 turns. Yeah, it looks like 6, maybe. Maybe 7. That's surprising. After what I saw over there, it looked like a one-sided stomp that they didn't really need to stop. Good for the English, though. crap. One thing I do need to watch out for is someone creating the United Nations. Because I guess it's hypothetically possible that they build the United Nations. I mean, there's a world war going on right now, so... yeah. I bet there would be a lot of people abstaining. Like, I guess it'd be the Vikings would be the other candidate, and then, like, the English would abstain. Sumerians, maybe. But I do need to watch out for that, and I should do, like, some sort of, like, a military alliance against the Civ if they look like they're about to win diplomatically. I guess I could still win diplomatically, but I'd like to go for the one city culture just for fun's sake. It'd be interesting to... depends when I win. I could also just, like, reload the game afterwards and check how easy it would have been to do a diplomatic victory. I mean, just to show off the victory to conditions to you guys. Because I think closing out the game is one thing that few people... Like, in strategies, it's, like, the last thing on your list to learn, but it is a very important thing to learn. And a lot of people can, like, establish themselves into dominant positions in games, but they struggle at closing it out. I mean, domination and conquest are obvious, but diplomatic, space race, and the cultural victories are very arcane. So let's see. We are quite close. Probably before Cure for Cancer. So let's see if... Oh, they didn't get fission. It looks like they got the same thing I got. Or not got, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I'll include a link to the Discord. The Discord is like the place to go if you want to start playing ladder games and multiplayer games. The Steam group is like, I'd say like 2/3 of the games are organized through the Steam group and not the Discord. So like, don't go to the Discord and think that's all the games. Like, if you're looking for games, go to the Steam group. But if you're looking for like advice, want to know how to get set up, you just want people to talk to about Civ, friendly banter. We have voice chat. Then the Discord is the place to go. And if you're like an older person watching this and you're like not hip with the times and you don't know what the Discords are, it isn't like there's like a program called Discord that you can download for your computer, but you don't need that. All you need is to like click on the link and it will take you there and it'll be like, what do you want your name to be? And you'll be in the Discord. That's all it is. So you can do voice chat there. There's voice chat servers, but it's also like kind of like old school forums in a way. Not as organized, but more fluid. It has like an instant messaging, like kind of like a mix between forums and instant messaging. And that's where we train people to be good at the game. And I like it because this is what I always wanted. I always wanted to be at the point where the new players would teach each other. That I wouldn't have to fight so hard to keep Civ 3 alive. I wanted to fight hard at the start so that I wouldn't be forced to do it just to make new players learn. And we're at that point now. Like, the new players, they can teach each other. And when they reach a disagreement or they're not sure what to say, then they can come to me or come to the veterans of the Steam community. But they can teach the basics to each other, which I very much like. I mean, I don't really... Like, when you play, like, a 2v2 with me and a new player, like, an introductory game, not, like, a serious... Like, the serious games are the Steam group games, the 4v4s and the 3v3s. If I play in a non-serious game, I often, like... Or almost universally, I will fuck up the teams completely. Like, just my existence in the game will fuck up the teams. Oh, no. Scandinavia and the Dutch. Well, they're pushing forward here. Are we almost at war? There's a lot of shit. The one thing that could happen is if I lose that city. I mean, they'd have to airdrop units in which case I'd see. But just for safety's sake, let's put this here. And we're about to win. Congratulations to us. Anyway, my presence in the new player games can upset the balance of the teams. So I don't even play in the games. I just I use the pings. I like kind of organize them, and people play against each other, and it works pretty well. And it's less work for me because I don't have time for all the crap it would to micromanage all the different aspects of the YouTube or of running Civ 3 multiplayer and all that crap. I like everybody else being able to do the work. Is this really necessary for a last turn in the game? And yeah, like the good thing about all the new players join is when they play against each other, it's more of a relatively fair match. Like you can find other people who are learning multiplayer too, and just kind of like explore the mods together and discover them together. I like to see like a lot of the people like making friends in the Discord. That's fun to see. Because I know like I've made a lot of friends through Civ. Not like friends in the same capacity necessarily, but things like me and Halu trading messages back and forth, and him like giving me tips on my pronunciation in Portuguese, things like that. Or El Quixote sending me Spanish memes. Okay, I really hope this is the "you're winning the game right now" lag. Someone told me that I think if you press the escape button, oh my god, it's something like that. If you press the escape button, you won't get the bug that Steam does where it crashes when you win the game. And my escape button on my laptop is actually broken, so there it is. Okay. 14 hours. Okay. Aww. I like how so many of my enemies have been completely destroyed. I almost forgot who the Mayans were. Incans I definitely remember not so fondly. But yeah, the Civs who were left in the game, I feel they really deserve these hearts around them because they did well. Like the Russians did well. I mean, they kind of played the start that they were given. There's no one here who like, wow, they really overcame the challenges of what they spawned with. No, they spawned on a big island. They did well. They spawned a shitty location on a crowded island. They did poorly. Yeah, that's the bug. I guess whoever commented on my YouTube channel lied to me. Okay, well, you guys know what's up. I won the game on Deity difficulty, 1 city culture victory. I'm quite proud of myself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.